Welcome. This is part of a series of seminars on EU-Africa cooperation, hosted by the Topibio project, which is a EC-funded project here at CBO in Portugal, and the Tax on Time project, which is Juliana's EC-funded Marie Curie project in Madrid at the Natural History Museum. So to briefly introduce myself, I'm Richard Ladle. I'm a professor here at CBO in the University of Porto in Portugal. My background is in conservation, science, tropical biodiversity, but the thing that's relevant today is I've been an assessor for the European Commission for the last 20 years, assessing a variety of projects, including 15 years of assessing Marie Curie projects. So I've never had a Marie Curie grant myself, but I'm from the other side. I've been involved in assessing Marie Curie grants for a very long time. So maybe I can pass over to my colleague, Juliana.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much for organizing putting this webinar in the series that you guys are doing at the Tropibio. So last year we also gave this webinar on how to give some information about how to prepare the Marie Curie Fellowship. We got some positive feedback that people got it approved. So it gave us a bit motivation to continue and do this year again. So if you didn't get it last year, so I hope you still find the webinar useful. If it's the first time, I hope you learned something. So let me share my screen, share the presentation. Yeah, can you all see my slides? Can somebody tell me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let me put this in the Zoom up. So, we're going to present today the webinar has two parts. First, I will give a quick overview on the proposal itself, and then afterwards, Richard will say what to expect from the evaluators. And Richard, please interrupt me as much as you want to, and you see that you want to contribute to something, just stop me.
Will do.
And you want, yeah. And well, during this presentation, we will show a couple of web links and also text that I extract from my proposal. And we'll put the PDF of the presentation on both websites, in the Tropibio and also in the Tax on Time, so you can check it there afterwards, yeah? So let's get started. Let's go. So what's the Marie Curie Fellowship? It's a postdoc fellowship funded by the European Commission. It has a strong component. Of course, the scientific part is important, it's strong, but it has a very strong component, as Richard was saying before, on training and on the career development, how you are going to develop how the project is going to help you to go further as a researcher. So this year, the call opened in May 2022, and it will close on the 14th of September. So the Marie Curie is a very prestigious and also very competitive call in the Commission. So it requires a lot of preparation before you submit. It's a lot of work. So from where, how to start, no? How to get started. So the first thing to do is to find, well, at the Marie Curie, you have to come to Europe. So you have to find a European institution and a supervisor that will host you during the postdoc, during these 2-year postdocs. If you don't have yet the institution or the potential supervisor, you can have a look at the website of the Euraxis. There you can search by country, by topic, by institution. There is a lot of options for filtering. And there are now 463 institutions that welcome applications for the Marie Curie. So the first thing to do is to find who can supervise you and where this person is. Then you also have to get familiar, after you have that, you have to get familiar with the guidelines. And sometimes the web interface of the commission there's quite a lot of things, and sometimes you really have to search. So I really recommend you to go to the webpage of the Euraccess that is here, that you can download the guidelines. They have a really step-by-step how to apply, how to log in to the website of the commission and all that. What you can also do that I find it quite helpful is to check the CORDIS database. The CORDIS database is a database from the commission that stores all the research projects that is funded by the EU. Yeah. So there you can find Marie Curie, past approved Marie Curie projects and from other calls, but then you go and filter program. I think they still have Horizon 2020, not Horizon Europe. That's how it's called now. And then you can search for Marie Curie EF in this case, because it's past, right? So I think it's quite helpful just to have an idea what people are doing, how they write, how they present the projects, and so on. So after you, yeah.
Just to quickly mention, we're going to be putting this presentation onto our website, so onto the Tax on Time website and onto the TOPIBio website. So don't worry about noting down all of the links here. You can have access to it straight after the seminar.
Yeah, super. So what's the timeline? So the timeline is a bit tricky because the deadline is the 14th of September, and August and July is vacation in Europe. So the supervisors are usually not available. So you have, by now, you should have already your ideas kind of roughly ready, and the contacts you should have it done already. So ideally, let's say by mid-July, all the contacts are already established, and you have a complete first draft, let's say by mid-August, and then you leave the last 4 or 3 weeks for the revisions and corrections. And here it's important to have like this, for me it was very helpful to have this back and forth with the supervisor, that you write his checks like this ping pong to finalize. Right? And the deadline is 14th of September this year, and it's 7 o'clock Brussels time. But is the system, you have to upload a proposal, it is not so straightforward. So I would really not leave to the last minute. So do it before, and also familiarize yourself with the web interface before the deadline. That's very important. Okay, so now that's the easy part. Now let's go to the real work. So the proposal, the template is divided, you can download from this website. It is divided in 3 topics, that is excellence, impact, and implementation. So each of these 3 parts is evaluated and get a score from 0 to 5, 5 being excellent. And to have it approved, you have to get very good or excellent in each of these points, yeah? So it has to be like a 4.7 or more in each of these sections. So now we go to each section, yeah, one by one, what can work. So on the research and innovation part, it's very important to have clear for yourself why you are proposing this project. So the question is why this project, why you are the ideal person to carry on this project, and why now? Why now is not only now like in the scientific development of your field, but also for your own career, that you are on the right time on your career to develop, to apply the skills you have already, and to gain new skills that will bring you further. So here, what is usually welcome there, no? So it's a project that has a broad scientific impact. It's a test of a hypothesis that's relevant not for a little subfield, but for the whole discipline. It's a paradigm shift. I think they welcome very much interdisciplinary research, things that can be scaled up, or there's use of novel technologies. Right, Richard, do you have something here too?
Yeah, they're also very, of course, the EC over the last 30 years has become much more applied in its focus. So I think when we're talking about broad scientific impact, it's also they're looking for things that may have a social impact as well. So if you can show the applied benefits of the project, I think that's also a strong point. In respect to the interdisciplinary research, yes, they do like that, but again, that can be when it comes to assessment. If you have a very interdisciplinary project, often they have difficulties evaluating it. So there's a balance. It's it's a bit of a lottery in terms of how things are assessed. But if the project has interdisciplinary aspects, it's definitely worth emphasizing it. If it has potential societal impact, again, very much worth identifying it. And I think generally speaking, the other thing is, as you were saying, you need a really clear idea, because the idea is you need a very clear narrative as well. Yeah, you need to be telling a story within which you emphasize how the science is going to strengthen research in the European research area, how it's going to have an impact on the subdiscipline within which you're working, and how it's going to have an impact on yourself and your career.
So to get this thing straight, it takes time. No, and things have to be well connected. So it's something that it takes a lot of discussions. And so what doesn't really work is like a case study or a replicate study that was done somewhere and then you go somewhere else, or a new method, but the question is kind of old. So this usually would not get approved. So I will go now to my own proposal. Yeah.
Sorry, could you explain a little bit more about scale up? What is that?
About what? Sorry.
Scale up.
To scale up.
Yeah.
I give the example of my own project. Yeah. Then maybe Richard has more can add. For example, I work with trees in the Amazon. But what I do could be applied to any biological group in any region of the world. So I can scale up. I can apply the same methodology, the same question, collect the same type of data for other groups, that it will still work, the approach. The conceptual question is still valid, is not only applied to this specific of the Amazonian trees. I can scale it up, right, Richard?
I think it depends what we're talking about. If we're talking about environmental research, you could be working on a site or a series of sites, but the idea is that the methodologies and the questions you're asking are things that are applicable to other sites, areas, regions. In terms of if you're doing more applied scientific work, it's often about the tools and the methods that you're developing. They can be used to evaluate, address other questions or other areas. So it's always this question. You're always looking. Can my work be applied at a larger scale or across boundaries? And those boundaries could be geographic boundaries, but also could be potentially disciplinary boundaries as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I continue. So I continue here. So now I go through my own proposal. Yeah. So with here in the first part, you have to about the research itself. So you have to write something that's easy to read. You have to present the rationale behind your project. All proposals approved that I have seen had a figure on the first page. We have to show scientific credibility and so that you really can do the work. Okay, it's all meta information. I show you how I did it.
Yeah. So just to mention something about the figure, Ju, this is often it's normally not a kind of scientific figure, a graph or something like that. This is a schematic. So it's the sort of fancy multi-part figures that you often see in articles in Science or Nature. Yeah, it's something really visually appealing that explains what you're doing in the project. You're bringing in icons. Often it's I've seen flowcharts showing how the bits of the project actually integrate and join together. So there's all sorts of different options. What I suggest you do is look at successful proposals and see what people have done.
I think the main idea is that imagine that the evaluator is not an expert in your field and he has a lot of proposals to revise, usually in December, that is code. And, you know, like if you have like 5, that the person can get what you're going to do in a few seconds or in a minute. So it has to be visually engaging. Huh? So here, going back to the proposal, so how we start the first paragraph, that's actually the most difficult and takes a long time to write. So here what I did is like you present, I did what is known, what is unknown, and what is this, how are you going to close this specific gap? What is important here is that you have to trigger the curiosity of the reviewer, and then you have techniques to do that, right? You present contrasting ideas, or you propose a new view on an old topic, etc. This paragraph takes a long time to write. I would not be stuck, when you start writing, I would not be stuck in this too long side. Continue with the proposal, and then you go back and rewrite. Continue with the proposal, go back and rewrite it. So then after you introduce your topic, you have to give a little bit background information. Now here, then again, you have the figure. And remember that you're talking for a broad audience. It is not the same as a scientific article. So avoid technical terms that only people from your field are used to those terms. Like it really try to write it for a broad audience in a way that's also engaging, that we say, what is next? So what is next? It's not easy. Then here we are on the second page of the proposal. And what I did, I organized, then I presented in a box, like the overall, the main question, the main research question, and then the sub-questions afterwards are already divided by the work packages that would come in the next section, yeah? So here's the main question and the specific questions that will be addressed in each of the work packages. Then we go to the descriptions of the work packages, yeah? So then for each work package, I presented a short description of the methods. Again, remember that the evaluator is not a specialist on your field. So use language, terminology, and write in a way that everyone can understand. Yeah. And then what is very important is to convince the evaluator that you are able to do the work. So how can you do that? One option, it is to show that you have done similar work before. So you can cite like some papers from you can cite your previous publications on similar topics or the work of your supervisor. So the idea is really to show this, to say this person knows exactly what she's going to do and she knows how to do it. But remember that you're going to learn something new. So, you know, it is a bit of balance, like showing that you can do and also that you can learn and be as concrete as possible. Right, Richard, do you have something here?
Yeah, no, just to follow on from what you were saying at the start about getting the introduction right. The introduction is the introductory paragraph is a critical part of any proposal, and it needs to be. You can think of it that the Americans talk about an elevator speech. Yeah, so this is if you were explaining this to somebody who to a scientist, but somebody who wasn't from your area, and you've got 3 minutes trapped in an elevator, how would you do it? So you got to really think it. I think Juliana's really right here. You have to really think through this section, and that paragraph is one that you probably keep coming back to several times until you've got it just right. The other thing to mention is your objectives need to be crystal clear. It's one of, and make sure, and often it's good to phrase them as objectives. You can have a general objective and specific objectives, and these often relate directly to work packages. So everything is interlinked, and as I can't emphasize this enough, it has to be really, really clear. So I've seen proposals that have fallen down because the science is excellent, but they haven't been able to articulate the specific objectives clearly enough. So it's not quite clear to the evaluators what the project is trying to do.
Yeah, I think here for me, what really helped is to have a colleague, someone who is not from your field, to read and ask this person, can you understand it? Really like work very close together, not only with the supervisor, but with a good colleague that you like to collaborate, that you trust scientifically. That really helps. I think it's even better if the person works in a different field. Okay. Okay. Then, as we were talking before the presentation, there is a component also there that's on the three-way, the knowledge transfer. And here the idea is to make it really clear, like the importance of the project for your own career and the importance of the project for the host institution. So like here you also have to be very concrete on the thing, like what is missing for you, what you have to learn, what you want to learn to become the scientist in your field. I'm already, like you have to say, I'm already excellent and I need this bit to become like the superstar, even if it's, like all the modesty you have.
Yeah, don't be modest here, but to try to adopt a, I don't know what I'd call it, maybe an American attitude. Yeah, you need to really sell yourself.
Yeah.
As well as selling the project.
Yeah, and I think for this, what helped me a lot was to see a proposal that was already approved, because I would not know how to sell myself if I didn't know. Yeah, I would not know if I had not seen the proposal from a friend. So, but the idea here is to show the importance for your career, like this little thing that's missing for you to become the superstar, and also what you have that's unique for you, from you, that you can bring to their own institution. Like it can be like your knowledge on something. It can be your network that you have built throughout your research life. It can be, I don't know, you can think of many things, but think like something that fits in the project that you have it. And it's special because like we are all individual and different people. So try to think carefully that you will find this little, the thing that makes you special for this project and for this institution.
Yeah, and I think maybe the way to think about it is that after you've finished your PhD, you are the world expert in your PhD at the very minimum. So, think about what you did during your PhD, or during your PhD and during a postdoc if you already have postdoctoral experience, and think about the specific skills that you learned. And the idea is you're looking for complementarity. So ideally, the host institute would have people working within your area, but they won't have exactly the skill set that you have. So it's about saying, I'm going to be coming to this center of excellence or this department which has huge capacity in this area, and I can increase that capacity because I've learned these skills and concepts which these at the moment the host department doesn't have as much expertise in.
Yeah. Okay. Then okay, how I communicate, because remember that you have to be very concrete now. So I put like in a table, and if you don't want to do the table, but for me it helped to organize like which exactly skills are you going to acquire. Is it going to be like a new lab technique? Is going to be learning how to work with big data? Is going to be a specific like computing analysis or whatever, no? Like exactly, like name the what you want to learn, not like I will improve my knowledge on ecology. That's far too vague. Or I will learn how to, I don't know. It has to be very concrete. And then you can write like, how are you going to learn? Is it via courses? Is it via meetings? Is it hands-on? Is it like training? Is it work on the lab? How many hours you are going to work in the lab per week? Like super, super concrete as much as you can. And if you know already, then you can name with whom you are going to learn these things. If you have the names of the people, great. If not, you can put, I will learn this technique in this department because I will go there 3 times per week for 2 years or something like this. Very concrete as possible. You know, something that when the person reads, they say, okay, that's how this person is going to implement the project. So then we come for, so that's the excellence part. Now we go to the impact. And that's where you have to explain how you're going to disseminate and exploit your results. And here I advise to read the guidelines carefully because it's quite confusing what's dissemination of what is exploitation. So the dissemination, I understand that's based on the scientific deliverables. So what you have also to have very clear for yourself is like, what is the key message that your research project is going to lead and then you want to transmit? To whom are you going to talk? To whom this key message matters? And what's the expected impact after you disseminate your key message to your target audience? So people will increase awareness of a problem, whatever, or X or Z. No? So again, very clear, concrete key message, target audience. In my case, was modeling communities, biodiversity data experts, early career scientists, and so on. Yeah, and the expected impact of each of the messages. So here I put. I compared the 2 texts from the first year that was rejected and then the second year that was approved. So you can afterwards read on the PDF. But like in the first year, you can see that's very vague. No? Priority will be given to exploit and disseminate scientific results, giving full access to the database generated. Yeah. The second year said the dissemination is formalized under the data management plan. Yeah. So it is much more concrete. People know, okay, she will do this and that. This is concrete.
Can I just jump in a sec?
Yeah, please.
Just going back a tiny bit to your to that page, you'll notice that Juliana put a lot of tables into her proposal. This is a fantastic strategy to put a maximum amount of detail and information in a minimum amount of space. If you find yourself repeating phrases at all, or if you have a large amount of information that you're really struggling to put into text, then always think about doing a table, because these remember, you're not writing a scientific paper, you're writing a research proposal. Research proposals are full of lists, tables, and figures, and the table is a key thing, especially for things like impact and dissemination and exploitation, because often what it is, the information can be done in a matrix form. You know, who are the people you're disseminating to? What are the tools that you're using? How are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? And all of this sort of information can go into tables. So I would advise you, if you're preparing your proposal at the moment, to always be thinking, is this information better as a table?
Yeah. And I think the tables also help because afterwards you have to do the Gantt chart that you have to put your deliverables and milestones, and then you can refer back, you know, you name the things here that refer to the Gantt chart, and then things start to get very well connected. And I have to say that I got a feedback from someone who got the proposal approved, and I asked what was particularly useful, and he said was the tables. So, so this you can read afterwards. like the comparison, no, between what was rejected and it was approved here, like the lay public interest in natural history collection. So I know very much my audience. Yeah, and before was like very vague. So now we come to the implementation. And that's what you're going to describe how you're going to put the project to run, yeah, how you're going to execute it. And the important thing there, it's quite a big part, and as I was saying before, like the first year I approved, I got quite a low score in the implementation because it's at the end and then you are already tired. So I would advise you, if you're doing for the first time, do a little bit the first, and then sometimes you start like from bottom, like start from the end and then go to the beginning. Don't go like from A to Z, but it starts also from sometimes from Z to A, that you are not so tired when you get to the implementation. So you have to do a very detailed Gantt chart. And here the main roles are the activities, and here the when we are going to do each thing. And I put here the people who would be involved in each of these tasks. So the Gantt chart, the layout is a bit tricky. So, but there is a lot of templates on Google. So just Google for Gantt chart templates and you'll find a lot of things. What is really important here is that you go back and use the same terminology that you use throughout the project. So if you called, I don't know, a specific technique, if you gave a name, you go here and you check exactly the same name. If you're on the dissemination thing, you use a specific name, you have to exactly the same thing here. And you write the milestones and the deliverables here below. So check for consistency of terminology throughout the project. So that's why it's very, very interactive how you do it. Yeah, and then here, that's what I was saying. Also, you divide like when we're going to do what. I added like the person per month, hour per of week, like work hours. It may be too much, but then I got like a 5 on the implementation. So I think this really helped. So the score really improved. So go too much detail, as much detail as you can here. And like here's the training. So you can check on the PDF afterwards what is written here. And then here I put like the two years, not comparison. So the first year was really like the allocation is presented only in a general manner. What did I do? Like I did what I always did before, like I listed and I put the months. But here, the second year, I put the months, the hour, who is going to do what, really careful with the terminology that repeats over and over again. So that gave me a very good score. And last, but not least, as people say, careful with the layout. You know, take the time to make the proposal as beautiful as you can, because something that really stick to the mind of the evaluator. So I knew I would not have the time to make it nice. So I helped a friend to help me with the formatting and the layout. And I think it really helped. So like now the tips for write, I think Richard is really good on that. So the acronym of the project should be very easy to remember. Like don't do it too big, too fancy, pronounce it, you know, it has to sound nice. Discuss your ideas with colleagues, check the progress with the colleagues, no? And towards the end, as many revisions as you can with the supervisor. And then a last tip here for the writing is that we were talking to Richard yesterday. Let's say everyone struggles with the writing. Yeah, it is difficult, but you can, so you have to do two things. First is the writing of this. There is some tips and like cook recipe that you can follow that will improve your writing. Let's say small sentences, vary the length of the sentences, use like short words. This book is really great for that. But you can connect, if you connect this, the macro structure has to be also very clear. So you can have perfect sentences that don't connect well and don't transmit your idea, will not have help. Or you can have a perfect structure, but it's not, you know, it's not catchy or it's unreadable. So you have to really be careful with both things. And I think Richard here.
Yeah. So I think the first thing to say is that if you've all done a PhD, so you know you've got experience of writing science. For sure, if English is your second language, as it is for a lot of you, you do need to spend a bit more time working on it. There are some differences, especially between Latin languages and English. One of them is that the sentences tend to be longer, split up with a lot more commas. So do try to keep your sentences a bit shorter, if possible. If you're using, some of you may use Google Translate when you're not too sure how to phrase things. If you're going to use Google Translate, try to structure your sentences in your own language as they might be in English. So for instance, if I'm trying to translate from English into Portuguese, I always write English in the style of Portuguese, put it into Google Translate, and it's more likely to make sense. The best thing to do for sure is if you have a pet English speaking colleague, use them. Yeah. So, you know, make friends with a native English speaker, or if there's a native English speaker in your department, use them to read through your proposal before you send it off. Remember, most of the evaluators, English is their second language as well. So they will forgive you a lot. But if you have lots of typos, for instance, like we have here in this, the title, tips 1p. Sorry, Hugh, I didn't. No, it's my fault. I didn't.
I will correct you. See,
yeah. So minor mistakes, minor grammatical mistakes, they won't care about. But if there's a lot of minor mistakes, and if it influences the understandability of the text, you have to be careful. But you shouldn't have any spelling mistakes, because of course you can use the spell checker, and you ought to put it to, yes, you can.
Yeah.
You can put it through a colleague who can speak the language. Now, look, you've only got a couple of months left to do this, so you're going to have to write it as best you can, try to be really clear, try to tell a story, a narrative, keep the terminology very concise, and make sure that you always explain when you're using words that are very technical. Be careful, as you says, be very careful with your abbreviations, make sure the language is consistent throughout the article, and if possible, send it to a native English speaker before you submit it, because that will help a lot. And
just one thing, in some institutions, you also look, you have to check on the website of the Euraxis. Also, there is national contact points. So these people, these are like group of people working for the Commission in several European countries, and they can help you. And in my case, I remember in Spain, they can read the proposal for you. They will not check the English, but they can check it. And in some institutions, I think in Sweden, I have heard like more like Scandinavian countries, they might have someone who helps more with the English. So when you talk to the supervisor, also ask if there is somebody who could check for the language of the proposal. And I think that's it.
Okay, so I guess I mean, the final thing to say, first of all, good luck with your proposals. It's a big job. It takes a long time. Ju, I haven't really spoken about the evaluation. Are we?
Yeah, I think you can know, like.
Yeah. So each project is going to be evaluated by 3 independent evaluators from drawn from researchers across the EC. These researchers have put their names down as potential evaluators, and what they'll have done is they'll have made they'll have inputted a big list of keywords, and the EC chooses people who are relevant to the proposals. So your proposal will be evaluated by 3 people. Normally, they have all of the proposals get sent round to all of the evaluators, and the evaluator says whether they are an expert in that area, whether they are capable of assessing it, or whether it's out of their area. Typically, your evaluation will be evaluated by one person who is an expert within the area of the proposal, and probably 2 people who have a good understanding but aren't necessarily experts in your area. Sometimes your proposal will be evaluated by 3 people who are not experts from within your area. So this is what you were saying about being crystal clear when you're doing the writing, because you're not necessarily going to be assessed by experts within your specific area. These experts will write what's known as an independent evaluation report. So there's 3 independent reports, evaluations of your project. And these 3 evaluations will be pushed together into a consensus report. And then by a rapporteur, normally one of the experts. The experts will then have a meeting, a consensus meeting, and then on the basis of this consensus meeting, they will decide what the comments that you're going to receive as feedback are going to be and what the scores are for your project. It's important to remember that the EC has very strict guidelines for the type of language that is used and the type of comments that you get. So what you'll find is if you're applying for the second time, you'll recognize the language that's being used, because often the comments have exactly the same structure. So XXX is insufficiently described, that sort of thing. And it's a bit frustrating because you have to interpret these comments you have to understand how they're writing the comments in order to interpret them. So insufficiently described normally means that you're lacking key details, such as Ju was showing on the before and after, where you write something and it's a bit vague, it's not absolutely clear what you're trying to say. And you could see in the second version, she was much more precise about what she was saying. And it's really, really easy to do this because you can write something, and if you've looked at it 100 times, it's clear to you, but it's not necessarily clear to somebody who's assessing it. What happens then is that there's an official banking list is drawn, and then there's a final meeting of all of the evaluators, and the official banking list is approved and the cutoff is made. So the cutoff point for funding is different every year. They have X millions of euros, and this can fund a certain number of projects. So it's whenever the money runs out, that's the cutoff point for the list. So when Ju is saying 4.7, well, that's that's probably about right, but some years it might be lower, some years it might be higher. The other thing is, I think, generally you should be able to score 5 for implementation, for example, because this is not rocket science, but you have to be really precise and thorough. Yeah, so it's something you spend a lot of time preparing your implementation, then you've got a really good chance of getting full marks for this. The same for impact. Excellence is more difficult because obviously experts vary in their opinions about science. So often you get a lot more variation in scores for excellence than you do for the other two sections. But the impact and the implementation, if you look at other proposals that have been really successful and you spend a lot of time preparing it, then you've got a really good chance of getting very high marks for those two sections, which just leaves you with selling yourself and the science in the excellence section. So to in a brief resume of evaluation, write for a non-specialist in your area, but you are writing for a scientist with experience generally within your area. Yeah, so you don't have to dumb it down, but you do have to be really clear and make sure that you define technical terms that may not be well known within the area. Make sure you make it easy for the evaluators with lots of figures and tables if you can do it, and try to be creative. As you were saying, try to produce a proposal that looks fantastic. Yeah, so make sure there's not lots and lots of pages of tightly packed text in long paragraphs with nothing splitting them up. Make sure that you're splitting up every page with lists, with bullet points, with tables. Remember, it's not a paper. It is a proposal, and proposals are much more formalized in terms of being able to use tables, lists, figures, things like that. Okay. So there's a question here, Juliana. It says, I'm going to apply with two supervisors and one of them is the same supervisor I have in my current postdoc. Do you think this could interfere with the success of the application? The main supervisor I will have for the Marie Curie is new, but the co-supervisor is the same I have now. Okay, so they do like to see transfer of knowledge. So I think it's a question of, if you're going to a new institute, even though you might be retaining a co-supervisor from your current institute, I don't think that will necessarily interfere with the impact section. What do you think, Ju? Mute.
No, yeah, I think if you really justify on the knowledge transfer, why you keep your supervisor, like this person is idea because ABC, and I will go there and get something and I bring something new. If you emphasize like the importance of keeping this main supervisor and going somewhere and then going back, or if that's what you're going to do, to emphasize the interaction, I don't know, I think it's not a problem. You can ask these things also to the national contact points and the people from Euraxis. I think with these practical questions like, should I do this secondment and this supervisor, that institution, people of the Euraxis, I find them quite helpful. Just continue on what Richard was saying. I think in my proposal, there was not a single page that was only text. There was the figure, a table, a box. There was always something that was not like, I didn't have 10 pages of like one full page of text. So to get a little bit of light view on the text.
Remember, the evaluators are all going to be reading probably 10 proposals. So, you want to make your one leap out as being readable and interesting, and make it easy. Make it as easy as possible for the evaluators. Be my advice. So if there's no more questions, once again, thank you so much for taking part. We're always enjoying this. It's the second time Juliana and I have done it. Please check out our projects, the Topi Bio project and the Tax on Time project, if you have an interest. And as I said before, good luck. It's difficult to get, but it's worth the effort if you succeed.
Yeah, and the other thing, like many people I know didn't get the first time. So I think persistence is very important also.
Yeah.
Important
It's like a concurso. Yeah, you have to keep on trying.
Yeah.
Don't feel you're getting rejected. Feel that this is just one more step towards finally achieving the aim.
Yeah, yeah.